It has been 3 years since John had forced to abandon his position as a Spartan and living on his life on the run. He had no idea if he would ever be found by the fight team Osiris. But thanks to his upgraded ship to his friend Cortana before they separated ways, she managed to upgrade his escape ship with stronger shields, stronger weapons, and including a cloaking device that she had recently had been invented herself. And this ship, thanks to him, or at least thanks to her help, was able him to leave. He traveled around the galaxy for months, trying to find a place to settle down or at least try to some sort of safe haven. But he knew they were almost impossible to go to any one of those big major colonies because of the big, well, in most of other big colonies it is impossible. He would be immediately been spotted, even even that he has been officially declared by United Earth government that he was dead. But even though that he was officially being declared dead by the fight team of Cyrus, they would still have been ordered to track him down. Even and he wants to try to place that he can be just be left alone. But after traveling around for about several months, he knew that he had to stay somewhere to be where he can stay, or at least get some more supplies. Because every time of this during the past few months, he had been traveling to between different planets or moons or other small colonies where he was able to trade for some more supplies for like food, fuel, anything that he could need it. But he always been a constant watch over his shoulder if it was any authorities or any of the fight team or Cyrus members nearby. He was constant paranoid that he would be tracked down easily. But thanks to his training as a Spartan, he would manage to get one step away from the team. But after some time, he thought maybe that he could stay somewhere, even in that it was a popular colony. Sargasso. Sargasso was this home to another Spartan soldier that was by the name Stacy. Oh, Stacy. Stacy and Spartan John was very good close friends. They had been trained because together, and he knew that she would be trustworthy. Because after being on the run for several months, he decided to go to Sargasso, even with a big risk to be discovered. But when he managed to land outside of town with a cloaking field, he disguised himself and managed to find where Daisy lived. And she was a bit surprised that even here to see him, because she was found out that he has been declared dead, which now she believed was a lie. He didn't want to explain why that he was dead to hunt it down, but he needed some place to stay. But she knew that fighting Osiris probably could be finding here on this particular popular planet, or at least its colony. I mean, anyone would be able to recognize him immediately. Even if many people would say, that cannot be him, he has been dead. But even though John said to Stacy, I know, but I need to place today. And he could not stay in Daisy's apartment or in his where she lived because she would almost could have almost have the life for it. But she said that he can live outside of town and that she would be able to get him supplies. At least enough that she could, and as often as she could. Even if how much she wanted to just want to stay with him. But after some time, when they talked together, that after that he spent almost about a month on Sargasso. He thought maybe it was time to leave the planet and go somewhere else to be living in more peace. Because He only knew there was only a matter of time before anyone would find him out that he was hiding on this particular planet and that she was the one who had done some to do the same. After they'd been trying to figure out what to do, Daisy mentioned to John just before he decided to leave just like that. Before he was declared dead and everything, she was very heartbroken. Even they were close friends. But there was something about that she had even told him or anyone. In fact, she had been in love with him for the past few years. But even that she wanted to tell him, but she never had this opportunity to do that because of his constant traveling around the galaxy, fighting against enemies or in battles anywhere. Or at least training his mother recruits on the different planets, and he was in a constant movie. So then she never had the opportunity for chance to tell him until now. And he wasn't much surprised because he did mention that he had some feeling that she had some feelings towards him. And then he asked her if she would be willing to give, if she would be willing to leave the soldier life behind her and to live with him, go where anywhere he wanted. And she said yes, but that would not be possible because if she just leave, she will be able to be. She will also be a fugitive and also be tracked down as he is. But after discussing how to make that not possible, so after they managed to figure out, they managed to use a ship of hers that she normally used, and they could somehow remote pilot it from his ship, which is cloaked, and having a body, or at least some parts of her own blood, on the ship in a small capsule or something, and then somehow made it to look at as almost some disaster or some connection problem in the engine, and that just exploded. People would start to start to look and examine the wreckage and try to figure out what caused it, and that even declare her dead. And that would actually seems to be working. She agreed to do this. But there was just one tiny problem. They needed at least about a gallon of blood, almost half of her body volume. And she would never be able to do that because she would almost die. But luckily for some more advanced medical technology he had, they were able to somehow duplicate her type of blood in a capsule. And that from that moment they started to figure out to do this plan. After days of planning, they put the capsule on the ship, remotely powered controlled from John's ship. And from that moment, they managed to track, at least pilot the ship in orbit when when Daisy's ship was still midair when they were about almost maybe just half distant from the city itself. When they decided it was time to detonate it, or at least make its explosion. And the day after the explosion itself, they didn't leave in case they actually in fact stayed behind. They somehow managed to hack into the research station on the planet who those who been examining the wreckage. And after they made the conclusion that there was some engine problem on the ship that made it something became unstable, which made cause explosion and that killed Daisy. She was then officially declared dead. And after that was taken care of, then John and Daisy left Sargasso and go anywhere they wanted. But even for the past few weeks after this so-called her death, she started feeling if it was the right cause or if it was the right deal to do or the right thing to do. After she thought about this for days, but she realized this was the best for her to do. After all, she was kidnapped to be part of this Spartan 2 program when she's very young. And from even from all of this, she wanted her to be free, to live her own life. They traveled together through the galaxy together on John's ship from one planet to another planet, moon to moon. But even during constant travel, it was nothing that they wanted to do forever. They decided maybe it was time to go to some planet where they can just live for themselves. There was just one tiny problem. Since the most major planets had often a small or big garrison or at least patrols of soldiers, which immediately would recognize both John and Daisy. So that was no reason for that was also one problem that you could never just do. Go to one planet and then suddenly sit down and they were almost perhaps almost immediately recognized by any soldiers on that planet. Who knows? It could have been any of the soldiers on those particular planets who had united knew them from their famous their heresy or from their heroic status for being famous soldier, or at least they could have also been recognized because of their posters from fallen heroes, recent dead heroes. So they decided maybe it was time to go for Peloton planet, at least, or perhaps even a suitable, habitable moon where they can live. There were actually, in fact, a gas giant far nearly outside the galaxy, which had a small habitable moon. Also, it actually had actually a small farming colony. At first, they thought maybe this was not the best idea for settlement, but they discussed about all other options from which planet they or moon they could settle on. But since this particular colony was very much far distant from any other big colonies, this was the only option they had, and also one of the even big risk for anyone to do that. When they approached, the colony seems to be had only about almost 8,000 people, but no military present anywhere on the moon. And this was also the only option they had. So after they landed just outside the big settlement on the moon, they built their own small farm. And even after about a few weeks after living there, everything seems to be going so well between them. They have no fights, and Jan was actually enjoying to live there as, as a civilian life. Even though he still maintained his basically training of to be a soldier, only meant like keeping his physical form up. Even Daisy did the same, but now they felt happier. It took them about 2 weeks before going to town. They used to wanted to be cautious. And after that, they found out this just for a small farming colony about 8,000 people. There were no big military presence in on the moon or in the system at all. So they felt safe here. But it took them nearly about a couple of months before they revealed the truth to the settlers about their true past. And in fact, it turned out a few of the settlers on the planet were actually, in fact, former soldiers like them. And they actually were accepted by anyone. So for that, John and Daisy were really accepted by almost anyone on the planet, on the moon. But even after some time, John felt very curious about one thing that he wanted to do. When he saw one of the former soldiers were in fact married, that his wife also was pregnant about almost only shortly to have their own the second baby. And he thought, what about he do the same? Maybe he could marry Daisy and have family with her. But he didn't want to force her to do anything like all of those things. But when he did mention over dinner that would she consider to get married and have a family of her own one day? And she said yes. She didn't want to live her own, she wanted to have her own family. Even when she was training a soldier, she had dreams of her being a mother and a wife to someone. And from that, John then proposed to Daisy almost about 2 weeks after he had talked to her about this, which she said yes immediately. And they actually had this very big wedding in town. Even after this wedding itself, everything was back to normal. They worked on the farm and they often helped around in town as well. And since Daisy, she found very talented to be a teacher. She actually started working as a teacher in town. While meanwhile John, he worked as almost like a blacksmith or even perhaps a miner or something, but he often helps on his new friends in town. And everything seems to be working so well between them in the new town. All of the things in their new life was really happy for them. But they've been married for nearly 2 years, John was told by Daisy they were expecting the first baby within a few months, and he could not be more happier to be a parent soon. After all, he could not be happier. He wanted to have a family soon, and they even found out they were expecting twins, twin daughters. That surprised even both John and Daisy. But it didn't stop their love for each other from no matter a second. And after their daughters was born, everything went even more smoothly for them both. They never had any fights, and they raised the daughters as they wanted to do. She taught them at school. John taught them about some about survival in nature, just in case if something would have happened, like how to survive how to make fire, and even some of this really was somehow the basic understanding of about survival in nature. But they never no idea about their parents' past until when they was 10-year old. Then when they was told about their parents' past. The twins were actually very much identical twins, but named Jennifer and Clara. Jennifer was like her mother, very talented in almost his self combat, but she really liked to be do farming also. But after being married with John for about almost 10 years, suddenly John found out that Daisy were pregnant a second time. This time they were expecting a boy, and they named him John Jr. John and Daisy, this was something both of them had never expected. Ever since John was declared dead by the Earth government, he felt now he had all the things he had wished for: a family, a wife, a new home, a new purpose. Even that the word sometimes he missed to be a soldier. But in being a constant battle, traveling around the galaxy, it wouldn't be how much for life for the family of his own. Like, his family would have been a constant worry about him, like if he would ever return or he would have been killed in battle or something. That would not have been much life for John's family. But John couldn't have been more happier to have his family with him. And of course, he was very happy to have his wife nearby his side, and he even walked with his daughters on their wedding day to the altar. And Jennifer had at least two daughters of her own. Clara, she had two sons. And John Jr., when he married, he later had two boys and one daughter of his own. That was really happy for him. John and Daisy could now just work together at the farm and forget about their old past and make new memories together with the new family. Even after all this time, there were some moments when John was worried that the Team Star 5 or Cyrus would came, or at least some military would came to this planet, to this moon, and found him and Daisy and arrest them for something. But that day never happened. And for that moment, John knew he was safe. He had found his true life of his dreams. Even Daisy herself. She actually loved to be a teacher at this new colony, where she preferred living with her family. Even, even after all that had happened in her past, this was something that she preferred to happen. Her life with John and her family and her grandchildren, it is something that they both wish never would. They both wish this never could have. They both would not wish that this would never be undo. Ever since John admits his feelings to Daisy and that she admits the same for him, both of them realized this was the life they wished to have the most. But not only to be that, but also to be married with the one they loved the most of all. And for that, John and Daisy could not have been more happier to be with the one they loved all the most in the entire universe. Because they were so meant to each other. They were true soulmates. John had even told Daisy that, and she loved him even more than all in the entire world and in this universe. And for that moment, both of them knew they were meant to be together. And this how John, Daisy, for the true love, got a big family. The end.